Now that you've collected the information, Analyse is about digging further, analysing this information that you've had and making more sense of it, getting some more information to determine what it really means. It's often where my intuition also kicks in off and gets some extra information. But you'll find the more you practice doing this, the easier it gets. It's like you become the researcher. This is like building the jigsaw. The profiling is like building the edges around the jigsaw, like that's the framework. That's what the profiling represents. Then what you do is you find the main pieces that are main pictures or the main characters that are in the jigsaw, and you start placing them on the board. Now that would be collecting the information. And then when you get a bit more detail, that's like forming clusters around those main areas that are on your jigsaw. So when you're at the Analyse section, it's like we're trying to make sense of this picture that's not complete yet. You've got the framework, you've got the main areas with cluster pieces around it. Analysing is now, what can we make of this picture that's not quite complete? Analyse includes ID pathway age. That means you're going to be identifying another age, or maybe it's the same age for the client's condition. And this will establish whether, again, if it's the same age, whether that's the major time in their life that's caused the stress or the trauma that's affected them today, or whether there's more than one age. And this will be pertinent to whichever pathway was in collect. For instance, if you got a pathway for physics, let's go back to like a migraine and so forth, and let's say they had a car accident 10 years ago and the first ID age was that age, and you got it again at this point, then it's just confirming this is a major point, a major turning point in their life. If the pathway age differs from the first profile age, it's then letting you know there's another significant age in your client's life that is pertinent to their condition. And often, again, you'll see the pattern, the same patterns happening at that age. But it just indicates that it's just not one age that's had the influence or the negative influence. There's more than one age. There's another one. There are scan lists in your pathway age that you can use when you identify the age, because sometimes a client may not recall what happened back then. Often I'll have clients that don't recall anything from their childhood. It's like they've blocked it out because it was too painful. So there are scan lists for you to use when you identify the age. The first one is the when scan list. So you can scan that list and it may come up like childhood, although you may have an age 10, and it can scan up childhood, and that's actually confirming, yes, it's when they were in their childhood. Let's ID the age again. Bring the arm up, locked position, maintain and breathe. Ask the client to maintain and breathe, apply pressure, maintain, and I get a nice strong muscle. Okay, now let's count back from the age of 25 to ID the age. In increments of 10, maintain the arm, lock position, nice and strong. 15 to 25 to 15, no change. 15 to 5, there's a change, an energy shift. So it's telling me the age is within 15 to 5. So maintain the arm again, nice lock position, thank you. So 15 to 10, no change. I'll count back in singles now. 10, 9, 8. So now I've got another age 8, when something occurred, something significant that has affected Emily. We could ask her, tell us about age 8. We could also scan the when, who, where, and what scan list to help us if she can't remember anything. Well, let's scan the lists, get the information, and then ask Emily what she remembers. Let's now look at the when scan list. And I can just scan in columns. So maintain, first column, second column, third, the fourth column. I got a change on the fourth column. So let's see which word. There's 3 words there. So maintain it, locked, childhood. I name the first word in the fourth column, childhood. So I get an energy shift on childhood. So it's something around her childhood. Well, that makes sense. We've got age 8, matches childhood. Then the next scan list is who. So who was significantly involved? Who was the person? And if they don't recall, there's a scan list here. It may come up family. So it's narrowing down what the stress may be when they were 10. Now let's go who was involved. Let's see if we get some information on that. So maintain the arm, locked. So first column, second, third. I get a change on the fourth. It changes there. Again, fourth column. So which word in the fourth column? So maintain the arm, family, and I get a change on family. So first thing is childhood, something around family. Then there's another scan list which is where. So where did it occur? And if they don't recall, you can scan that list and it may come up as a religious event. So something may have occurred perhaps at church or Sunday school or something. It just hones in to give them a little bit more information. Now where this occurred, maintain. Let's scan the columns again. First, second, third, fourth column. Seems to be consistent here. So I'm on the fourth column, and now I'm going to see which word in the fourth column. Maintain the arm, locked position, nice and firm. Family occasion, no change, no energy shift. Spiritual trauma, no energy shift. Ancestral lineage, no energy shift. School, and there it drops. So it's around school, which would make sense. She's probably at school at age 8. And something around family. And the last one is what. So what happened? Again, you can scan the list and it may come up like trauma. So it's honing in and putting together these bits and pieces to say, well, at age 10, at some religious occasion, there was some trauma and it was in their childhood. So then it may also trigger some information or may trigger a memory of the client. And again, it's helping release, helping identify, helping to hone in. Now let's look at what it was. So maintain the arm. So first column, no. Second column, no. Third column, something in the third column. Maintain the arm. I'm going to go through each of the words. Physical abuse, no. Loss, no. Pain, spiritual, diet, fear. So we've now got a few words around what happened at age 8. So let's ask Emily what she recalls that occurred to her at age 8. What do you remember at age 8?
Moving school again.
Okay. So moving school, so school makes sense. And then, yeah. And how were you feeling around that time?
I was quite scared.
So the great thing about identifying these situations and these patterns is because the universe is holographic and there's always a pattern in a pattern in a pattern. So this pattern that was happening at 8 happens again at 14 and probably happens again later in your life at different ages. You'll find it popping up again until you realize the pattern, you find the emotion that triggers it, and you start releasing and healing. Because you've all probably had that same dance with a partner or a friend. You'll know they'll say something, you say something, and it happens day in, day out. You keep doing the same old dance. You got to break it. You got to break the patterns to create something new. Reconstruct is about gathering all the pieces of the information that you've found, all the facts and so forth, and then bringing them together. It's like creating a jigsaw. You have all the pieces, you have all the clusters, and you put all those pieces together, and you try and make sense of what the jigsaw is, because there may be some gaps, there still may be some pieces missing. So with the information thus far, you try and make the picture, or try and work it out. Now we're up to stage 4, which is reconstruct. This is gathering all the information that you've found, all the detail that you've found, all the patterns and all that information, and determining how and why something occurred. Now you're up to the step of finding out why something happened, why a certain event occurred or a condition occurred. This has a more spiritual aspect to it, because it's really related to universal laws, and more so it's talked about in the Spirit course. There's a scan list in the guide that you can scan some words to try and ascertain why something happened. It's a good place to start. There's things like past life trauma, which means if there's a trauma in a past life and it's not healed, or you've died with the trauma, often it comes through again in this life till you receive healing. More about that in the Spirit course. There's karma. Some things are karmic. Revenge, it could be someone seeking revenge or something like that. Negative emotions, you could have that negative emotion in you that's attracted whatever condition you have. Negative energies, that can be thrown onto you from other people. Universal laws. Well, universal laws is what you give out comes back. Could be related to that. Personal growth, maybe it's just for your personal growth. It could be a contract that was made in a past life. It could be genetics. It could be fear, soul trauma, DNA damage. So it's a variety of words here with more of a spiritual aspect to it. And you'll learn more of that about that in the more advanced courses. At the moment, we'll just keep it simple. If it comes up, you can write it in as why something happened, and then you can try and investigate and get a bit more information about it. But it will satisfy and give some sort of insight to a bigger picture of why something happened. There is a table at 4.1 on the whys, so we can test for something in that table to determine why the condition has occurred. So let's look at Emily's condition, which is diabetes. We've got some information, and now I need to make it clear why this occurred. So we'll muscle test on the table that's at 4.1. So maintain the arm, ask for a lock, and it's holding nice and strong. We're looking at a strong muscle. So now I'm just going to look at the list. First column, second, first column, second, third, fourth. And we get a change on the fourth column. So now I'll look down at the words and see which word comes up. So maintain the arm there. First, second, third. DNA damage has come up for why something occurred. So the DNA, as you know, is the blueprint of the cell. So there's damage in this blueprint, which has resulted in a disease of diabetes. The how stage is trying to work out how something happened. This, you will get some clues when you look at collect stage 2. The pathway that was chosen there, whether it was energy, physics, emotions, or spiritual, that pathway will give you some sort of indication. Like if the pathway was physics and then it showed that there was TMJ trauma, then that will give you some insight to then perhaps their current condition. You'll learn more about conditions and more about the impact of physical conditions and emotional conditions the more you progress throughout the forensic healing courses. TMJ disorders cause all sorts of problems, and so if they've got like migraines or headaches, then the cause will be TMJ trauma, and it will make sense as to then what needs to be done. They need aligning of the TMJ. Working out the how something happened also includes logic, client feedback, your intuition, to try and ascertain and work out how this condition occurred. To find clues on how something occurred, the clues will be in the ID age, the ages that have come up in the protocol. So if you look at what happened at those ages, it will give you some idea of how something occurred. Also, you can, if you get intuitive responses or information, you can muscle test if that is accurate into how something occurred. If the client has a thought on how something occurred, you can again muscle test to see if you get an energy shift or a confirmation if it's correct. Or if logically you think of something, again, you can confirm that with an energy shift or a confirmation. This is a really rewarding and exciting part of the protocol. It's where you make sense of the information. It's where you get the aha moments and give your client some really good clarity. I had a client and he had always attracted bad jobs. His career never took off. He had problems with his work colleagues, and he's currently still got a problem with one of his work colleagues. And then he would lose his job and so forth. And what came about was he's asking, well, why? What do I do? What came about was his negative belief system was on career, but his childhood was quite negative. He didn't have his father around. His father divorced his mother. He called him selfish. He said his father put all his time in his career, and things were tough as a child. So he developed this negative belief system about having a career because he saw his dad just go off, and he calls it be selfish. So when he grew older, or currently, he then creates all this negativity in his work. So how it happened in childhood, and how it developed a negative belief system. So when I've identified that, I've told him he now needs to create a much better belief system around going to work, a much better belief system about work colleagues and how he feels at work, and that in turn will create a better environment, and he'll attract much better than feeling depressed and mad and angry at work. So now we've got to make sense of how did this blueprint get damaged. This is where you've got to start putting together your logic skills, but we can start with at table 4.2 on which direction to go. And there's 4 choices, as we had 4 choices before. And that was your energy, physics, emotion, and spirit. Now remember before it took us under the emotions list for Emily. So let's just see if we're on the same track, if it's still giving us that pathway. So maintain the arm, and it's a locked muscle. So I can go energy, physics, emotion. So it's telling us it's under the pathway emotion, or it's related to emotions. Let's look at the 2 ages that came up for Emily, 14 and age 8. They were both to do with stresses at school, both to do with feeling there was some judgment there, and both to do with moving. So I want to see how Emily was feeling about school. What's her general perception and emotion about going to school? So tell me, how are you feeling when you'd go to school? Did you like school?
Not at all. From the start, I felt that I didn't really fit in, and maybe that I didn't belong there.
All right, so here we go. It's not uncommon for children not to feel like this, but going to school every day and feeling it's a stress when you don't feel like you belong or you feel like you're part of that community. So this is an emotional stress on Emily, and this emotional stress, as you know, emotions damage the DNA, and this DNA then has caused a disease. So a realigning and reconnecting the DNA should start help her body and to realign and innately heal itself. The story tells us about the client's condition from every angle, and this is where we use all of our talents, intuition and logic to lock down the cause in detail. Because at this point, the healing process has already begun. Fleshing out the story makes it clearer to identify cause, impact, and consequence. This benefits the client so they can take away valuable information to make the necessary changes, for example, belief systems, thoughts, behavior, and their state of health. On your client analysis form is all the pieces of information that you've gathered written in certain areas. What I'm going to be talking about now is two extra boxes about impact and consequence. But let's work through the example in the guide. Let's work through someone here, they've got migraines and low energy. So we'll look at the information of when it came up that it happened at age 7 and age 10. It looks like the two ages that came up for this person who, okay, at those ages, 7, they're on a horse, and the other time was the dentist. Where it happened? Well, there's the location, Mansfield, and then the dental office. What happened? When they fell off the horse, they fractured their skull, and in the dental office, they got braces. And why? It came up a past life trauma. So it looks like there's something still reoccurring here. And how is fell off horse, which caused a TMJ jaw strain. Then we look at the impact. The impact is now injury to the jaw and associated TMJ disorders. As I've talked about with the TMJ, when the jaw's out, it will have a huge impact, and migraines is a very common one, and so are headaches. And the consequence causes migraines and low energy. So it summarizes, it tells a story of why this person has come with their condition. It makes sense of it, and so now the person knows they can get more healing around the jaw and addressing the TMJ disorders and take that further. But so they go home with some answers. Now they go home with a story. Okay, 4.3, find the story. There's a table in 4.3 that will allow you to put the information in, insert the information so it's all collated and you can make a story from it. So let's look at the story when it happened. So when, for Emily, it came up ages 14 and 8. And both times she was moving schools, and both times there was some stress at her school and how she was feeling. Who? So it came up family around who. So what seems to has come out? Who? One would be herself, because she's placing a judgment on herself and also trying to please her father, or there's a perception of that she feels that she needs to do that. So she's placing more stress and burden on herself. Where it occurred? Well, it was occurring at school and changing school. So that seems to be the main focus of where her stress was. The what came up as fear. So that's a negative emotion, fearing going to school, fearing what may happen, fearing other perhaps playmates, and fearing the judgment that she's perceived to have on herself, and maybe fearing judgment from others or her family. So why her condition occurred. So we're looking at the condition of diabetes. Why? Because her DNA was damaged. So the DNA has been damaged. That will cause dysfunction in the body and will manifest itself in a disease. And how? It came up emotional. And we found that pathway as we were going through the protocol to be the pathway to take to find out this information. The pathway again has shown up emotions. We know emotions affect the DNA. We know it has an impact. So that is how it's occurred. Emotionally, she stored up stress and all these other things. So impact, look at that line, impact damages DNA. The consequence manifests as diabetes.